All right, welcome back. I trust everyone had a good break over lunchtime. So we're going to continue on with our presentations here this afternoon. And to start us off is going to be Chief Melvin. Let me just get your mic going and go ahead. Take it away. Introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, Mayor. I'm going through the Protective Services budget. This afternoon with this presentation. So, although already covered on orientation, we'll briefly just talk about what currently our level of service is and what we do. So for the fire service, it's fairly typical what you can imagine what fire services do in a community: fire response and suppression, alarms, commercial, residential, hazardous materials response. There's certain levels within that hazardous materials response. Medical first response, water ice rescue, fire inspection, education, fire investigation, and motor vehicle collisions. Emergency management, emergency social services. So the role there is to provide emergency and disaster prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. And also for emergency social services is these short-term support to individuals and families that are displaced by emergency. So if we had something significant in the community, a large apartment block or other areas, it also could be providing support for neighboring municipalities that would need to come into Beaumont for service also. Municipal enforcement, pretty straightforward: traffic enforcement, bylaw and provincial statutes enforcement, animal control. Automated traffic enforcement, that is through a contract for general terms of photo radar program within the city. With the changes that came into force in 2025, we're restricted on enforcing only in playground and construction zones. I also look after the RCMP when it comes to the conduit of communications between the RCMP and the city, and also the RCMP administration staff who are all city employees. So law enforcement, community policing, victim services, general investigations section, and obviously the municipal policing committee, which will be coming to council in 2026. Ambulance, emergency medical response provided by Alberta Health Services. Alberta Health Services covers the one ambulance that provides service to the city, and we're kind of the stopgap, also providing medical first response, and that is a different level than what the ambulance staff would be providing to the residents. Some of the focuses for 2026, we're still in the process of our recruit training, where we brought on 17 staff members to supplement our paid on-call members. Impact of growth on response time, so that's always a concern. Daytime response will continue to be a concern moving forward. And the fire service bylaw, which is going through a substantial update and modernization, and it'll be coming to council in Q1 of 2026. Municipal enforcement, obviously the impact of growth on files per officer. It is challenging, obviously, as the community grows, more complaints, more questions, more files come into the office for the staff to deal with. And those files are technically not a 5 or 10 minutes. Sometimes it could be an hour, could be a day, depending on the severity of what the file is. And any impacts on those files that have to go through the court process, that obviously extends the time for a file to be closed. Proactive enforcement with education is always something that we're striving to. So our officers are always out first thing in the morning looking for traffic violations. We are also present during when school is just starting and at the end of the day, so we can ensure that kids and young adults make it from the school to wherever they're going. And another one we're focusing on is obviously commercial vehicles and traffic safety. A lot of commercial traffic coming in and out of Beaumont on our perimeter roads. and making sure that those vehicles are safe and in accordance with provincial guidelines. Emergency management, emergency social services. So the Emergency Management Advisory Committee will be coming to Council in 2026 for that committee, and then we'll provide an update back to Council through our normally quarterly reporting on the status of the emergency management status of our municipal emergency plan for the city. So all of that's tied to legislation. And then also working on the emergency social services plan so that we have trained staff, whether they be internal staff or volunteers from the community, to be able to support social services issues if we had any within the community based on some event that we may have had. RCMP, Municipal Policing Committee, as stated before, proactive policing. We've been had a great relationship with the RCMP and the staff sergeant on ensuring that we're being proactive in our policing. Every vehicle, very similar to our municipal enforcement vehicles, are mobile offices. They can do everything in the vehicle, and to get that out there. Obviously, the RCMP's role is a little expanded when they're dealing with a lot of the criminal code and social issues. It takes more than one officer to look after those types of files, so it creates some challenges when it comes to proactive policing, but we're still pushing forward with that as we move into 2026. Community safety is always a big piece. We're always monitoring. The RCMP do a very well job on getting the pulse of the community, getting feedback from residents on what they're seeing. We're seeing the trends come out from a larger Leduc detachment and K division on these are certain things. So the General Investigative Service, which was brought in at last council, has proven to be very beneficial in trying to mitigate some of the crime trends that we're seeing and trying to prevent excessive crime from coming into our community. Automated traffic enforcement. We have 40 hours of automated traffic enforcement by contract that happens every week. And they focus on designated areas that we've determined through our research with e-collision data to find the high-risk areas within our community. Over the last several years, as everyone is well aware, the provincial government has decreased and tried to get rid of what was determined as cash cow areas that were just providing, other than revenue, no real impact to traffic safety. We focused our traffic safety employment for ATE in playground zones and construction zones where we know it's a higher risk for the community. So they provide that in conjunction with our community peace officers who are also doing mobile patrols in those areas also. Ambulance, we have one Alberta Health Services ambulance in Beaumont. It's the office is staged at the fire hall and the ambulance sits in the Parks building adjacent to the fire hall. We are seeing the impacts on growth. One of the challenges that we do have with an ambulance here, when you have a patient, you need to leave the community. And unfortunately, once you get into Edmonton, a lot of times you get stuck there. So what impact that has? Well, that impacts the fire service because we'll get dispatched to all the medical calls and we're tied up more on scene for longer times. And right now, the way we're currently staffed, we can only handle one call at a time. We don't have enough staffing to do multiple calls at the same time in the community. So it creates some challenges when we look at medical first response and how that impacts the community. Because there's nowhere for the ambulance to go in Beaumont. It always has to leave. There's no facility here for it. We are seeing an increase in 911 calls when it comes to medical response, and generally across the 911 network, everybody phones 911 now for everything. So trying to triage those calls and determine which ones are higher priority is what our dispatch center does for us on our behalf through a contract. So service levels considerations. So protective services as a whole, the fire service presently does not meet what is known to many municipalities as the 10-minute response time for high intensity residential fires. Our planning development team mentioned that this morning on if you don't meet the response time, the building code kind of changes and puts in restrictions on what you can, how your house can be built, what it needs to have, what you can't have, so that it's just an impact on the level of service that we currently provide here. Daytime response, as you've seen through quarterly reports, are in that 7 to 8 minute range, so we're meeting a daytime response. But in the after hours, which are covered by our paid on call, we're into that 12 minute plus response, so we don't meet it. Generally, when you look at that, we don't meet that 10-minute response time, and that varies depending on time of year. Obviously, in the wintertime, it takes longer time to go out, warm up your vehicle, and make sure everything's clear by the time you get to the fire hall. So it could be anywhere between in excess of 5 minutes before staff are actually getting to the fire hall after hours. So that's an impact that we have. Obviously, resources to match increase in call volumes. We've seen an increase in call volumes yearly by roughly 20%. Increase in severity of calls. We're seeing a lot more structure fires than we previously had. Collisions based on traffic. We do know some target areas where collisions are happening more frequently, and we are developing areas within our education to try to mitigate and to advise residents that are traveling in and around our community when it comes to traffic collisions. But overall, across protective services as a whole, we've seen, obviously, with increase in population comes increase in calls, and determining the severity of the calls is always challenging when it comes related to growth. Operational efficiencies. In 2024, we did get the protective service level of service completed. We looked at all of our service levels, so fire, community peace officers, municipal enforcement, and the RCMP. We did develop a long-term capital and operating plan on determining what the investment needs to go into protective services over the next several years. The offsite levy is something that's new. It's a double-edged sword, because it's great that we have an offsite levy, but there's also an understanding of a commitment that we need to fulfill when certain things are built. Per se, when a fire hall is built, it's up to the municipality to staff it and put the apparatus in it and all the equipment that comes with it. So that's up on the municipality to fund that. So, and those costs are not cheap. Fire service, anything within protective services is very expensive, but that's the reality that you have when you have an increased level of service that you're providing to the community. General Investigative Unit, we talked a little bit about the RCMP. They've done some great things over the last several years. Some of the stuff has been in the media about what their involvement have been, which is great. We are getting a lot of proactive response to public concerns. So our municipal enforcement vehicles are out there talking to the public before it becomes an issue, or trying to mitigate that issue as it before it becomes anything major. We always get the comments that, well, I phone municipal enforcement and nobody ever gets back to me. Every call into municipal enforcement goes through the 911 center. Every call is recorded, date, time stamp with the phone number that's phoned. So we have done in the past where we've gone to track and confirmed or denied that no said person did not phone 10 times, they phoned twice over a span of 6 weeks or 6 months or whatever it is. So all that data is collected so that we can have the metrics to make sure that we're providing the best service that we can with the resources that we have. We do have a great records management system that's able to pull all of our statistics, all of our files, how much time an officer spends on a file. All of those things are done, and then we present that back to council as in the through the quarterly reporting. Fire services paid on call is a bit of a challenging piece. This year is the first year that we've lost a significant number of what I would consider experienced staff. Life changes, people move out of the community, too much demands. As we've talked about in our level of service piece. We have to be realistic that we can't expect somebody to do a full-time job and then do a part-time or 0.8 job responding to calls in the fire station. Although very passionate, sometimes we need to police ourselves when we're setting expectations. And so this year, we've put another recruit class through to make sure we can get our numbers up. It will take a full calendar year for them to get trained. And then, of course, they need the experience in dealing with the calls and the call volume. So there's still some significant demands on the paid-on-call members that we do have. But we're in that 40-ish range right now. And when you look at it, 40% of the total calls that we respond to are handled in the daytime with the full-time staff. So 60% of your calls are handled after hours and on weekends with your paid-on calls. So that's a significant amount of numbers and what we're asking for staff to do. They're passionate in doing it, but once again, we need to temper the expectations of the demands that we're putting on the staff so that we're trying to maintain that work-life balance and ensuring that at the end of the day, everybody's going home healthy and happy and continue on with their regular lives and their families. So that's always a piece that myself and my staff are always focusing on to make sure that we're maintaining that balance. So budget-wise, well, what does that mean for protective services compared to current year, looking at next year? We have seen a decrease in revenue. That is due to, obviously, photo radar has decreased. Our ticket revenue from a variety of different CPOs or RCMP has decreased, so that shows a decrease in 2026. Expenses have obviously, there's a significant jump there, and I'll explain that in the next slide of where those expenses are going to. Majority of that is dealing with staffing. And obviously, if we have less revenue coming in, then there's less transfers. So everything that comes from the automated traffic enforcement program, so the revenue that's generated that, or the grants, or what language you want to use, is restricted and needs to go into a traffic safety reserve. And then that, obviously, colleagues discussed that this morning on what that funds in the community. So there's significant asks there. The big approach to look at this ask is not to grow our current level of service. This ask is to maintain our current level of service that we currently have. So what does that mean? Obviously, you can see ATE. There is no adjustments for ATE. It's under contract, so it's based on fine revenue. The fire services for 2026, the ask is for 2 entry-level firefighters. That is to go with our current policy and to remove myself and the deputy chief off frontline response. That will still give us only 4 members to respond Monday to Friday, does not extend our hours, does not cover evenings or weekends. Municipal enforcement is for 1 community peace officer, and that is to maintain our current call volumes that we get for municipal enforcement and our officer to population ratio. Right now, as you've seen last quarter, we were 1 officer per, I think, 6,800 residents. We want to be around that 1 to 5,000. That's industry standard. So the ask is for 1 there. Along with municipal enforcement, there's a part-time ask for admin support. Right now, we only have 1 administrator for protective services as a whole that covers all of the areas outside of the RCMP administration. And then for the RCMP administration, a lot of this is tied to the multi-year financial plan and the contract between the RCMP and the municipality, and obviously through the province. One of the challenging things with the RCMP contract is we have almost no negotiating power with the RCMP when it comes to their contract salaries. It's more of, this is what we have, this is what our current staff have, this is what our challenges are. So right now the RCMP are in contract negotiations, NPF, the National Police Federation, and the Treasury Board. They will determine what the contract is, and then that'll get flushed out to the municipalities through the provincial government on, here's what your increase in cost is. So that contract ended in 2024. It's now 2025. So whenever that new one comes, we will get notified of a back pay when that needs to be paid for, and then whatever those new wages may be. So it's a complex process with the multi-year financial plan. We've had discussions at all levels, from K Division all the way down to our local detachment, on how to mitigate and streamline some of those processes to make sure that that we currently have. So we currently have 17 members with the detachment. We don't have any increase in asks for any members over the next several years. That's what we've dictated. But once again, that doesn't mean the costs are not going to go up as we wait for whatever this new national contract will be, and any increases that they have in equipment is all directly downloaded to the municipality. We do get some funding through grants through provincial government to that program, but those are very limited when we look at the RCMP budget. It's a very expensive service to run, but at the same time they provide an extremely high level of service to the community and ensuring that we maintain that kind of safe feeling that we have within the boundaries of the city of Beaumont. A lot of information there. I'm guaranteed there will be many questions, especially when it comes around to funding or levels of service. But I'll turn it back over to Mayor and Council for questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Chief Melvin. And then Councillor Van Newkirk.
Thank you, Chief Melvin. I have a few questions in regards to our page 49. You have listed that it's a community peace officer, I believe, in right under municipal enforcement. Mm-hmm. Is that to be part of the like student resource officer? I know that we had a presentation last year, or not too long ago.
Through the mayor to Councillor Murray, that community peace officer resource is a community peace officer on the road. We're trying to maintain our current level of service. Our current level of service, school resource officer is not part of our current level of service. We did have one years ago, but we were falling way behind on our core service of what municipal enforcement was. So we did do a realignment. We do have an RCMP member through the Community Police and Victim Services person that does visit schools often, but we presently do not have a school resource officer funded in the 2026 or future budget items moving forward.
Okay. My next question is, can you speak to us a little bit about page 118 and the hopefully moving to a 7-day week service and what that would look like?
Through the mayor to Councillor Murray. So when we currently look at protective services as a whole, we try to look at it as a level of service and what resources would be to get us to the next level. Currently, as I stated before, we're currently 4 full-time staff members, including myself and the deputy chief, that provide frontline response Monday to Friday. The next level of service that we could likely see is 7-day-a-week coverage, and that would be taken over 7 days a week, most likely 10-hour days based on a 40-hour work week. That is the next logical step, and probably based on our facility, that's the max that we could handle. Knowing that, as we talked about earlier, about the off-site levy and the fire service and fire stations come online, you need to be able to ready to put full-time staff into a 24/7 service. Now, 24/7 service at a minimum is 16 members. So when you look at how you want to stage your approach, and we're still several years away before we get down that road of when new fire stations are coming online. But it'll be the determination of council if you want to slowly increase your staff so that it's not of a big as a hit, and you're looking at the current welfare of the current staff, or you continue down the road of increased call volume, bare minimum response, and then in 4 to 5 years down the road, you're coming with, anywhere a couple of $1 million in salary, plus apparatus, which right now is roughly about $1 million to $2 million in apparatus, and all the equipment that comes with it. So it's a big ask in the budget year or in the budget years leading up to. So the intent here is to slowly increase so that it's manageable over the next 4 to 5 years, but knowing that sooner or later it's coming. It just depends on how ready we want to be for it and looking at how much ability we have in maintaining currently what we have, right? Mm-hmm. We're as thin as we're going to get, and with every home that's built increases the risk every day in this community to the fire service. So the recommendations moving forward in this budget is obviously 2026 is to get the 2 chief officers off the frontline response. But then we're still minimum of 4. We haven't changed anything drastic. And then we still don't really have any coverage for sick time, vacation time of full-time members. So that's where myself and the deputy chief still need to. We're kind of in, but we're not in. So it's not a clean cut. But those are some of the challenges that we have moving forward. Obviously, when you look at that, 600,000 for about 5 members is what you're going to get for that piece. So when you need 16, you can imagine what the cost is going to be. Now we're looking at today's cost, right? 2030, 31 is when we may be there in a 24-hour situation. We can anticipate those costs are going to be more expensive
Elevated.
than what we would see today, and that's throughout emergency services as a whole. The later we do something, it just costs us more in the end. Trucks, equipment, all of those things are just compounded. We don't get a Black Friday sale in emergency services when it comes to equipment, or it's just that's the reality of providing that level of service to the community. It's expensive. We're aware of it. We're trying to temper the expectations and meet what the community needs in this current year, knowing that there's several investment that needs to happen, and you've seen that through the presentations that we've made so far. And there'll be more in 2026, so we get into, how can we do this if something changes, but that long-term investment into emergency services is something that is required for this municipality moving forward.
I have another question, because paid on call, currently there's a cost that is, over and above employee salary. Can you just talk about how that might be changed if we were to bring in 4 more and go ahead with that additional fire service staffing?
Through the mayor to Councillor Murray. So if we look at today's staffing of Monday to Friday, kind of 8:30 to 4:30, and we move to the next level of service change, which is 7 days a week. So we're now covering more hours for full-time staff, so we can anticipate there's going to be less demand on our paid-on calls. But our paid-on calls are still going to be required. They're still going to have to maintain the same training standards. They're still going to have to be outfitted. So all these things are still going to happen. What we're going to see a decrease on is how many times we call them out to an emergency. The problem is that with a minimum response of 4 members, we're going to be calling them out to emergencies even when full-time staff are working, because 4 persons on the fire ground is absolutely the bare minimum for us to be able to do anything effective, especially when it comes to a rescue. So there's still going to be demands on the paid-on-call fire service. The investment is still going to be there. We'll probably see a little less on what we pay through honorariums that we pay to them to say, thanks for helping the municipality out. We'll save a little bit there, but it wouldn't be as substantial where it's going to be, we're going to save 2 FTEs if we hire 5 FTEs. There's still going to be a requirement. It'll just be a less demand and most likely more manageable for them and for us when it comes to how much pressure, how much demands we put on our paid on call. But that will obviously, those demands will slowly deteriorate over the years as we move from a paid on call to a 7-day week coverage to 24/7. There's going to be less and less requirement as we continue to move forward. But we can expect paid on call volunteers required here for the next 10, 15, 20 years for sure, at some capacity. And that's based on what we believe our growth projections are going to be in the next 10 years, even in the next 5 years. So there's always going to be an ask. It's very expensive to do 24/7. I would not recommend that today, but there will be a time and point where that tipping point comes in that if the recommendation needs to come forward, it'll be brought forward based on risk, research, what our members are doing, cost, all those things to be looked at.
Thank you. I think that's pretty well all that I had for questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you. Very thorough on the fire service side. Maybe just trip over to the municipal enforcement side. And if there was to be an additional community police officer added to all of this, what would that budget requirement be? Are you able to share that?
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Newkirk. So on average, including benefits, you're about $120,000 for a peace officer. But you also need $100,000 in capital because you need a vehicle for them to be in. So totally to bring on one community peace officer, you're in around that 220, 225 today's numbers, but that's all impacted on equipment that would all comes out of the U.S. For sure. So.
Yeah, and that was my next ask with the capital associated. So is it one vehicle to two officers? So if you had that whatever 220, then you could put another 120 on that, and then that car is used, and then you'd need to. Of course, there's other kit required, right? But is it that 2-to-1 ratio to vehicle that is calculated on, or do you usually have one per officer?
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Newkirk. So for this position here, there'll be a corresponding ask on the capital side. You'll see it in growth when it comes to a community peace officer vehicle. We typically like to try to do 1-to-1 so that since we're such a small workforce that we can get maximum awareness in the community. Even though, yes, we are aware that they're on shift worker, but sometimes those shift workers, we have crossover shifts, or we have a special event coming in. Typically, you'll see a 1-to-1 ratio when it comes to community peace officer and their required equipment. And the equipment also includes, body cameras, their vests, all of that PPE piece in that capital ask. That's, one person, fully operational. There's a capital ask for them. So.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the numbers.
Thank you. Councillor Natellenbos and then Councillor Hyde.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Melvin, for the presentation. Just a couple of questions here. First question, I guess, are you able to sell us a bit more on the request for personnel? I know you highlighted it, but I really want you to demonstrate the importance and the need to get these 2 additional entry firefighters as well as the CPO, and the importance of the admin to your team. Like, what differences will that provide to you being able to take the chiefs off of the first line response?
Through the mayor to Councillor Natellenbos. Obviously, if you remember the TSI report when we had the consultant came in, having chief officers as part of your frontline response for a city our size is very abnormal. We're probably the only city in the province that is currently doing it, and there's a lot of risk associated with it. Obviously, my role as a director of protective services carries more than just the fire service, and it's been challenging for the last 4 years to come in and be able to try to do everything all at once. But there's certain things that we need to be starting to focus on, and one of those things is when that fire hall comes on, we're going to need significant resources internally to try to make sure we manage that and we're delivering that forward outside of doing normal response. Because one response could take you an hour out of your day or could take you 4 hours. So that is on the fire side. So our current policy, that council policy that we have, makes mention to chief officers should not be part of your frontline response. Municipal enforcement, just to go back, our council policy for municipal enforcement for level of service talks about that 1 to 5,000 ratio. Right now we're 1 to 6,800. And when it comes to admin support, it's 1 to 4.5, and we don't have any. We use kind of the one coordinator that we have for protective services as a whole, but obviously when that person's not in the office, and you don't have any administrator. So it's just being able to focus on the other things that we need to be focusing on as this service grows and the community grows, so that we can ensure that the community is protected, we have the right equipment, our staff are protected and trained properly, and at the end of the day, everything is really tied to what level of service the community expects from us, and us to be able to deliver that in a safe manner where we're not burning people out, and we have a whole bunch of people off, or we have members of the fire service leaving because the call volume is too much. So that's the reason for the first step, is to get us where we want to be as our current level of service, and then looking forward now to resources of, okay, what's the next level and what year should it come in? And that's the focus of myself and my staff as we continue to move forward in this journey on growing emergency services as the community grows.
Perfect. Thank you, Chief. Next question just relates to response time in the evenings. You'd noted that it's not necessarily where we want to be. What would be the minimum amount of officers we'd need for night shift to make that a functional shift that's full-time in the evenings?
Through the mayor to councillor and then tell them, boss. If you're looking at to meet the 10-minute response time, you're going to have a 24/7 response. So that means you're going to have 4 members covering 24 hours divided by 2 shifts, whether that's 10 and 14s or 12s. But if you want to meet the 10-minute response time based on our current data and numbers, you're going to have members that are in the station awaiting a call and not sitting at home.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. For the 2 entry firefighters that would be coming on board, should this be approved, what does training look like? I know you had mentioned it takes about a full year for the volunteer members. What does it look like for a full-time entry-level firefighter?
Through the mayor to councillor and tell them, boss, as part of our hiring practice, we will set some minimum parameters that they would have to be trained before they would show up. So certain levels that they would have to have for level 1 or level 2 firefighter, driver operator, so that we can get them in the door and within several weeks bring them up to speed on how the organization works, what the community looks like, and get them to work as quickly as possible. So when we hire full-time staff, we hire them coming in fully qualified. When we hire our paid on calls, they're coming right in off the street, and we have to train them up to that level. That's why there's a difference.
Perfect. Thank you, Chief. And does the same apply for our CPOs, or would they have to go through SolGen?
Through the mayor to councillor and tell them, boss, the CPOs we hire already qualified. The challenge that we have with community peace officers is that as soon as they leave one organization and come to another organization, they need to reapply for their community peace officer level 1 designation, and sometimes that can take up to 10 and 12 weeks. So we may hire them, but they can't fully go out and do CPO 1 duties. They can do bylaw officer duties, but they wouldn't be able to do any moving violations, anything to do with traffic. They're very limited in their scope until they get their full designation. Once they have their full designation, then they're fully employable in accordance with our current level of service.
Thank you, Mayor. Just 2 more questions, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. You had mentioned, Chief Melvin, to Councillor Van Newkirk that we're looking at about $120K for an additional peace officer. That doesn't reflect the anticipated revenue of $35K, correct? So we'd be looking around $85 in terms of net cost?
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Nieuwkerk, yes, we have a designated 35K on average yearly for revenue. That's what we've seen over the last couple of years. A lot of that is obviously based on violations that are issued in the community. But there is, this year and last year, we started putting in to try to capture that piece when it comes to revenue. It's not guaranteed. It could be for a variety of reasons, but we have attached some number to it. It could be less than that. It could be more than that, depending on if they were fully employable for 12 months in a year and had their full CPO1 designation.
Perfect. I will actually save my other question for later. Thank you so much for the responses.
Thank you, Councillor Tellenbus. I got one of my questions answered here already. So one question I had, if you could just clarify again, you have 4 full-time, but the ask is for another 2 full-time, or is it to maintain those extra 2?
Just clarifying, Mayor, this on the fire service?
Yes, sorry.
So this ask for the 2 is to remove myself and the deputy chief off front time response. So our level of service doesn't change, our hours doesn't change. We're just taking us off the front response and having 4 members be able to provide response during the daytime. That's all that is.
Okay, so 4 full-time fire, apart from you and the deputy.
Correct. We currently have 2. We would be asking for the additional 2, and then we would step back.
Okay, good. And then you answered that question. The other question I had is, how many calls did you see in 2025 so far?
Through the mayor, we have seen right now, I know we've just, looking at Q3 stats, but I know we just are in excess of 600 calls for the fire service already. And we still have roughly 6 weeks to go. We are anticipating more calls relating around traffic that we see. Last year, 689, 2003, 607, 2002, 544. So we're anticipating to being closer to that 700 and tipping that 700 call volume. And once again, that's just the total number of calls. There's still a whole training aspect that the members need to provide and they need to be involved in. So outside of the calls, we're still asking them to come to Tuesday night practice. We're still asking them to do that full day, depending on what training that we're trying to do. So they still need to do skills maintenance plus the call volume. So as you can see, the hours kind of add up into how much, in theory, free time you believe you may have after working a full-time job.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Councillor Hyde.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation, Jay. Definitely a big topic in the city, fire suppression, and also with the other portion of it. I'm looking at the school resource officer again, just basically going back to it and wondering whether or not there'd be some way we could do shared services with other municipalities. I'm not sure if they have somebody in their schools, but I've heard some fairly deep horror stories about some of the high schools and some of the things that are going on. And there's definitely a need to protect our youth. And I'm not sure whether there's a need for a full-time, but definitely a part-time or some sort of a shared services with other municipalities, how we can find a way to get somebody into our schools to stop some of the youth crime that's going on there.
Through the mayor to Councillor Hyde, we've seen a kind of a shift when it comes to school resource officers. A lot of them that I've seen over the years have transitioned to an RCMP officer going in there because they can do the full parameters of whatever the issue is, where a community peace officer cannot. There's only certain provisions that a school resource officer would have. They'd still have the same designation as what we would have. So that creates some challenges in itself. Now, obviously, the cost of an RCMP member compared to a cost of community peace officer is drastically different. It is something that we've received context on when it comes to school resource officers and what we're able to provide. There is an opportunity that we can reach out to school boards again to see if there's some type of funding model that all 3 school boards want to be involved in to provide that level of service. If that's a wish of council, then we can definitely put that on the list of things that we want to try to see if there's an opportunity in 2026 before the start of the school year. But that would be it. I found over the years trying to find part-time assistance within community peace officers is very hard because most of them work full-time on a shift schedule and they can't commit to anything other than casual with another community. So those are always difficult to find. Bringing in a bylaw officer really would not work because they would almost have no provisions to be able to do anything when it comes to the issues that they would find in the school, and they'd be constantly calling the RCMP to come to do that. So it's a bit of a there's some challenges there when it comes to the school resource officer and the funding for it, obviously. But if that's a wish of council, we can definitely have that discussion when it comes to budget deliberations. Once again, the cost would be the same as a community peace officer level 1 out on the road as would be for a school resource officer.
Yeah, I think that the first thing that has to be done is the discussions with the school boards. There's no doubt about that, to see if there's some sort of funding model in that place. But I'm not sure when we bring that up. I'm sure that you guys can let us know back there, Shalane, when we should bring that up, serve an idea. So I'll leave that with her as to when we'll bring that forward as far as council goes. But it's something that definitely the community has expressed a need for. Some sort of policing within our youth high schools and such, and I think I want to get that piece in there before this new high school goes in for sure. So I just some of my comments there. I'll leave that there.
Thank you, Councillor Hyde. Councillor Van Nieuwkerk, and then Councillor Penrod.
Yeah, just a little bit bigger picture question, Chief Melvin. So the ask is for one additional CPO, and how will the community experience change with the addition of that officer? What does that look like? What's that going to feel like to the community?
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Nieuwkerk, obviously we always get questions on how come you're not out in a certain area? How come you're not in this area? How come you're not in that area? How come you're not down around Champs Valley at 8:30 in the morning when traffic is going a little crazy? We're very limited in what we can do because typically there's only one person on during the daytime. Sometimes there's two people on, but there's a crossover. There's only so much one person can do in the community, especially when all the after-hour calls are sitting in queue that you'd have to deal with from the night before. So there's more than just being able to go out and doing the patrols. We need to meet our call volumes and response time when it comes to getting back to residents that had an issue. So the ask is to maintain what we're currently trying to do in accordance with council policy, is that ratio of making sure that we have enough officers out and seeing increases where we have 7-day-a-week coverage because we have a rotating schedule of staff members. So that's the ask for that. So once again, my staff know I'm a firm believer of being proactive and seen in the community. And a lot of times you get a lot of things dealt with and questions answered in education happening when the officer deals directly with the public and is available. And a lot of times questions come out and discussions, and we can get things solved that way. So it's trying to maintain what we're currently say we're trying to do, which right now we're strapped pretty thin as new subdivision comes on, more houses, more complaints, more roads to patrol. So just it's a lot of the same language that many of my colleagues have stated, but for front facing, yeah, it's challenging for sure. So we're just trying to be able to meet the public's expectations when it comes to our level of service.
Yeah, thank you. No, I appreciate that for sure. And during the campaign, there's a lot of new ideas that get floated around, and you hear there should be a rule about this, or you should change the rules around that, or you should try this, you should try that. It's my opinion that the community hasn't actually experienced what it feels like to follow the rules we have. because we haven't had enough personnel. We haven't had enough resources, right? So for me, you know, my wish is there's 2, and we'll see where that goes next week. But, you know, I think trying to get to a level of service where we do think about a couple of aspects of proactive in our day, and just the volumes that are being dealt with, it's not a surprise that we're not able to get there right now. So thank you.
Councillor Penrod.
Sorry, my question was answered. Thanks.
Okay, sorry about that. Just one more question, and this just more for clarification, for I understand this might be for the other J, but it's under the automated traffic enforcement. You have 200,000 revenue expenses, 60,000 transfer 140. Can you just explain to me the ask here in terms of the math?
Thank you, Mayor. I was hoping this question would get asked. So the $200,000 of revenue is what we anticipate losing, in addition to the $60,000 of expenses that we anticipate in losing. So if we're not paying a contract for revenue we're not getting. And then the $140,000 is the loss of the transfer to reserve for the excess funds that would have been left over from the fine. So the revenue, we're not collecting revenue, we're not having expenses, and we're not having transfers to reserve. It's basically, so that's the net zero impact, but that's the reality of the situation.
Okay. Clear as mud. No, but we are using the automated traffic enforcement.
It is, but so this is representing the decrease in the change in
Gotcha.
in
The
legislation that we can't,
Okay.
only in restricted areas. So there was a drop off.
So the ask is more for the transfers over.
It's the loss in additional fine revenue because we can only limit our number of spaces we can go to, and then we're not employing as many cameras and out spaces, so the expenses go down, and then the leftover after expenses, that revenue was normally going to reserve to fund traffic safety. That revenue is not there, so we're not transferring to reserve.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that.
Mayor, just to provide some context, with the change to the ATE program, we're not permitted now 2/3 of the sites we lost in Beaumont. So we used to be into that high 60s on locations, and now we're into like 25. So as Jay said, less money to pay the contractor, but also less ticket revenue that comes in from ATE.
Less revenue. Thank you for explaining that. Councillor Van Newkirk, did you have another question?
Yeah, just following on that, is automated traffic enforcement paying for itself, or is it now a cost?
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Newkirk. So we only pay the contract once the fine has been issued. So right now, we're currently paying $30 for every ticket that's issued that goes through the court system. So that's how it's calculated. We only get an invoice when they process a ticket. Where the challenge and the unknowns always are, because the data is not readily available from the courts and from the GOA, is if how many of those tickets get fought, don't get paid for 2 or 3 years. So with ATE and a lot of our fine revenue, the area or the year that it's, the year that it's in, we may not see it for 2 or 3, 4 years down the road if it goes to collections, whatever it may be. So that also creates some challenges where you have an expense in 1 year but not get the revenue until the following year or the year after. So that also creates some challenges. And we see that also on the revenue side for traffic collisions when we're invoicing insurance companies, because the cost happens in the year that it happens in, but we may not get something to the following year. So that's where Jay and his team do all the magical journal entry stuff and make the numbers work. But it's just one of the challenges within emergency services on how revenues and expenses kind of happen.
Not quite hashtag bad debt, but hashtag wait a while. Yeah, thank you.
CEO?
Yes, thank you. Just real quick question actually for Jay, and I know council has heard this message a couple times now in the last 2 weeks, so it sounds like by the questions that they do get it. Can you explain a little bit more for the public's benefit what the deputy and what it means to remove the deputy and the fire chief from the truck, as far as what other work is going to get done that's fallen off the table?
Thank you, Mr. CEO. So the deputy fire chief's role beyond response is that person is in charge of the complete operations of the fire service. So all of the equipment, all of the training, any certification, any purchasing, any day-to-day activities, this is now being done in conjunction with responding to calls. So when we look at a deputy chief focusing on making sure we've got a good vehicle spec for the next apparatus purchase, a lot of times this gets pushed off to the side because medical call came in or another call came in, and sometimes you never get caught up, or what unfortunately a lot of us do is that we're working after hours and on weekends to get caught up, which we wouldn't expect of our staff, but when it comes to ourselves, we kind of bend the rules a bit. So this is the same thing when it comes to my role. Obviously, the fire service is one piece. Municipal enforcement, RCMP administration, dealing with the ATE contractor, emergency management, emergency social services. So there's a variety of things things we need to move forward and get some traction on, that we need those hours to do that. The deputy chief's role is also ensuring that our current recruit program is running, and obviously a lot of that happens in the evenings and weekends, so time needs to be adjusted where he's available to deliver that training along with our training officers. So it's not as easy as just pull them off and all they're doing is office work. The deputy chief's role is really to make sure that the operations of the fire station and everything that happens and all the interactions that the deputy chief would have either with other departments or in the community or colleagues in other areas is a vital role in ensuring that we're providing the best service and the best economical way we can do it. So hopefully that answers or provides some clarity for council and for the public.
Thank you. Yes, one other question I have for the contracted and general services, is that where you have the paid on call, or what exactly, how does that break down?
So for the mayor, the contract in the general services, obviously the RCMP contract.
Okay.
We have seen increases across our dispatch contracts, our responsible pet ownership contract that we've just done. So we're trying to bring those contracts into current dollars because we haven't seen any change in them from recent years. So they were always underfunded, and the RCMP contract changes every year. So we can anticipate to see increases in that year by year, as you can see that in the line item for the RCMP.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Councillor Murray, did you have a question?
Yes, thanks. Just one more quick question. I'm just wondering if you can just speak to, with this service being fairly underfunded as a general statement, how do you feel that affects the employees within the city?
Through the mayor to Councillor Murray, I'm, I guess, very lucky that we have a very passionate staff. We've built a very good culture within the fire service where we have members willing to give up their personal time to come in. So what I've done over the last several years is to make sure that they feel safe coming to the station. So that is making sure our equipment is up to date, making sure all the things that on the outside may not seem, you know what, too big of a deal, but to members of the fire service having gear that's met a certain standard, having new equipment, having a new fleet, knowing that the community and administration is investing in them and the equipment to make sure they get home safely. And that's the ultimate goal. I've spent a lot of time investing in people over the last several years and throughout my career, and we'll continue to do that moving forward so that we have them as responders, and at the end of the day, they can go home and say, yeah, today was a good call, but if anything happens, I know I'm going to be helped or looked after or not inheriting any more risks than you would normally inherit from being in that profession.
All right. Any other questions? good. Thank you so much, Chief Melvin, for that. Appreciate it. So what I understand is we have 3 more presentations. Is that correct, Jay, for today? Seat 6, there we go.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so there'll be a capital presentation. I anticipate it probably would take us close to 3:30 where we have a time specific for the library. And then after that, we'll do utilities should be fairly brief.
Okay, I'm just trying to think of a natural break time for us to account for. Is the library scheduled for 3?
Yeah, it's 3:30. It's a time specific for the library personnel to come in. So we could go and say stop at like 3:15.
Yeah, does
and
that
if we
give you
still have
enough time?
leftover on the capital side, we can come back to that
Okay.
after that. So that's fine.
Let's do that.
Ouch. Okay, thank you, Mayor. Again, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jay Bahachik. I'm the Director of Finance, presenting the consolidated capital. Just as we go through this, so again, we talked about this in the consolidated presentation earlier. So this is a major change in our presentation and disclosure style. So for public consumption, we've rolled the capital request up into rolled up program levels. Administration is prepared to go into closed session to discuss particulars about capital, should council want to deem so. I would ask that you let me get through the presentation first if we want to do that, rather than in and out, in and out, in and out. Might be a better use of our time. And it's, again, the methodology is around protection of Beaumont's financial interests. I used the playing poker with your hand turned around analogy. I think it really resonated. And I said administration is prepared to go in closed session. So again, at a super high level, municipal renewal program. So there are 6 programs that we're looking at. So we have operations, fleet and equipment, transportation renewal, facility renewal, open spaces, protective services, fleet and equipment, and technology. And you see the associated buckets of dollars associated with those programs, but not any of the particulars. Just for context, so in all the cases, the renewal or replacement programs are usually routine, planned, scheduled replacement or maintenance of infrastructure. So in this case, operational fleet and equipment. This program can do things like backhoes and tractors, snow blowers, mowers, vehicles, skid steers, equipment like that. Transportation renewal would generally include arterial or collector road stuff, sidewalk renewals, neighborhood transportation. Facility renewal program, it's going to be all of the city-owned facilities, so City Hall and Library, the BCC, the Ken Nickel, the BSRC, Operations Building, Fire Services Building, Chantal Berube. Open space renewal, again, so the assessment, design, demolition, construction, and commissioning of the playgrounds and play fields, and that's ball diamonds, soccer fields, tennis courts, playground equipment, and green and natural spaces. Protective services, as we talked about just briefly with Chief Melvin, so things in this program can include fire apparatus, police vehicles, emergency response equipment, so jaws of life, self-contained breathing apparatuses, and then the fire kits. Technology replacement program, so again, this is going to be your servers, mobile devices, workstation, all the network components, all the hardware that makes the organization run. So then we get into the municipal growth program. So again, we have 6 categories. So open space growth, operations, fleet growth, protective services, fleet growth, facility improvements, transportation, and traffic safety. So you'll see that there isn't a ask in growth this year for technology. We can get into some of the minutiae of that, but it's largely around the transition and change in leadership. So we're not prepared to grow where there's a lot of catch up they're doing from that perspective. Utility renewal and growth programs. So there's the wastewater, water, and stormwater renewal programs, and then a stormwater system growth program that's on the books. The wastewater system renewal includes things like lift stations and pipe infrastructure. The water system includes water distribution, pump station, reservoirs, and hydrants. Stormwater, be things like the stormwater management facility, not called upon, just for the record. They're not stormwater ponds, to be very specific, not for that kind of activity. Ditches, culverts, other pipe infrastructure, lift stations, so it's all fairly common and consistent through the different programs. And then we have municipal and utility levies. So there are a couple of projects in each category planned. So municipal transportation can include arterial intersections and roads, and then the water side, reservoir, booster stations, pump houses, pipe infrastructure, things like that. So funding, talk about some of the principles. So when we're looking at funding the capital plan, the first principle is maximize the use of third-party funds. So use all of everybody else's money first is generally my principle as a finance guy. So that includes grants, levies, third-party contributions. Venture financing is, we leverage that. Again, venture is not a funding source, it's a financing tool. We use it to advance specific strategic goals. It's appropriate for large capital investments and not so much for small dollar stuff. And it applies the generational equity principle. Sustainable reserve funding renewal, so building that contributions through the operating budget to support the maintaining infrastructure that we have. And the principle is around ensuring that we can take care of what we have independently and be self-reliant and not rely on outside sources. And really the challenge is, I mentioned in the consolidated presentation that I gave Mr. Lewicki a very rigid funding envelope to kind of plan out the structure. And that's, again, to balance today's needs against tomorrow's pressures. We could have spent more this year and then have nothing left over to spend for money in future years. So it's trying to manage the pressures today while leaving us viable and resilient for tomorrow's challenges. So on that vein, as I speak to the using other parties first, so let's work from right to left. So there is a small project that requires, it's too small and it doesn't qualify for debt, so it's a levy funded project, but we're going to advance utility reserves to finance that and recover the money. Then you have a levy debt situation where ultimately developers will pay through levies some significant water infrastructure, but in order to advance the project, the municipality would be leveraging our debt to make that happen and then recover over time. We are not planning on using any municipal debt for any municipal owned or funded projects. On the levy side, there is some sufficient municipal transportation levies that we have collected, and so we'll be advancing some transportation projects through the existing levies that we've collected. We then leverage $5.2 million in grants spread between municipal renewal and municipal growth. So you see that at the end of the day, our $5 million is just over 25% of the ask that we put our own money into the game. So we're maximizing as much as we can externally and leveraging dollars to try to protect our own reserve position. So, and that's spread. Basically, the reserve is the last, like property taxes is the last source of income on the operating side. Reserves are the last source of income on the municipal side or on the capital side. So I look at every other funding opportunity first, and then where I don't have any money left, third party or otherwise, then I fill in the blanks with municipal reserves. It's generally my approach. I'm not going to go over this slide, but this is just for public consumption. If they're only looking at this piece, we talked about the idea of the ranges and the color coding. We also talked about the balances of the deferred revenue and how we're planning on using the grants and the levies. I did talk about debt considerations already, so I'm not going to reread this one. And then the multi-year plan. So again, just reminding council that this is the bare minimum ask as far as infrastructure. It does not reflect the need. It reflects our funding constraint. There is modest municipal growth within the plan, but it is limited available funding will impact our ability to do new things. And there's, as I mentioned, significant offsite levy projects, transportation, utility, fire. And so in the 5-year plan, administration is recommending that we would need to debt finance 3 major projects, which would use $30 to $35 million of our debt capacity, which would limit our ability to, or would limit the recommendation, or make a recommendation to limit our use of debt for a period of years until we get some of that paid off. So this is just the table breaking it down. So we're looking just on the municipal side, so $11.1 million in 2026, and you see that number starts to grow over a number of years. 2028, you see some spikes as we bring on the fire station in 2030, so that's spread over 4 years in the municipal offsite levy. On the utility side, you see that generally our renewal program is stable and growing. There's not much planned for non-leviable growth on the utility side, but then we have some major infrastructure in 2026. There's a major project, and then the reservoir in 2028 and 2029 uses a significant amount of debt and dollars. So just some high-level 5-year plans. So renewal program significantly underfunded. As I mentioned, growth capital viability is limited. Grants continue to be challenging and largely unreliable. So indicators suggest that the non-competitive grants will continue to decrease for both bodies of government. As I mentioned, developer levies, so 3 major projects. All other leviable projects, should they require advancement, will have to come to the table with developers, and they're going to have to work to come up with solutions to advance infrastructure that the city won't be in a position to front-end finance after these 3 major projects. And that if we do that approach over the 5-year window, we would recommend not applying any other debt-funded projects for around 10 years just to get back into a sustainable loop. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions, or we could move into, so any public questions, and then if there's questions that were specific capital projects, administration would recommend moving into closed session.
Okay. I just have I'll start with one question. 193, which talks about the different projects here. I'm wondering, is it normal practice to put a 25% contingency in there, budgeted in the 25% contingency and a 15% engineering testing contingency? Is that above, that seems above average, above normal? You want to speak to that, Kendra? Who's going to speak?
I can try speaking to that, but I actually think that Mr. Anders might be the best person to talk to. We did go through a lot of that on the offsite levy. I believe the utility master plan actually calls for 30%. When you're looking at long-term projects where there is an unknown for a period of time, costs will escalate and everything else. And this was the amount that we had landed on that protected the city's interests. But I'm going to let Mr. Anders talk to that if he can.
Number 5. Go ahead.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, thank you very much. Essentially, that's the benefit of maintaining that sort of level of contingency in the unknowns that we have for this type of project. We don't have a site located. We don't know what the land costs are going to be. We don't know what the infrastructure and utilities will be required to service that site. We don't know what the transportation will be in and out of that site. So there are many unknowns, and so this type of 25% would be well within standards for this level of estimate.
And is that within a year that project is slated to, like, different, when you say projects, is this a multi-year project that you have that contingency in place?
Madam Mayor, that it would vary with each project and the stage and the phasing that project is related to. So there are multiple projects across the plan and the multi-year staging. So as we develop more detailed plans, we reduce that level of contingency as those unknowns become known.
Okay. Yeah, I was just looking at the upgrades, the one on page 95, but same detail. I'm just curious, because just looking at it from a place of, in the past, have previous capital projects regularly used their full contingency amounts?
So thank you, Mayor. I was just going to speak to that. So the idea of a capital budget is to provide authorization on the absolute high end that you need to go to, because nothing is worse publicly than overruns and things like that, where, oh, it turns out that there was just a little bit more and just a little bit more and just a little bit more. So from a capital perspective, it's best practice to say, we think it's going to cost this much. We add some unknown contingency, we add engineering, we have the worst case scenario, and then we 100% strive to get as best value and spend as little of that as possible to deliver the project. But it's, you go to procurement, you have a comfortable number that you can go to. You leverage those pieces, and not that, we're like, we get the gold standard of the thing because we got a giant number. We're trying to get the best value for dollar on each of the projects, but we don't want to administratively. It's challenging to come back and defend. Well, we took a really conservative line on the budget. Now we're asking for more dollars, and that's going to have a negative perception. Or if we're drawing debt, right, particularly on a debt project, you can't redraw debt and boost it up. After, generally, you have to have all your debt in place prior to construction starting. So you want to have all those ducks in a row and things locked down before you do that. And so it's always best to, at the high end, and get authority up to that maximum, appreciating that we endeavor to always be well below as much as we can.
Sure, yeah, and I appreciate that. And the reason why I'm asking the question, obviously, because for transparency, but also for the sake of whether or not, in terms of getting the budget down, that there's wiggle room. And so I just wanted to ask the question in terms of, because it seems to be a little bit higher than standard.
As far as getting the budget down, so the only impacts, how do I say this? The capital budget does not directly impact the operating tax rate. So knocking down the budget a little bit on a project is not going to move any dollars on the piece. What it does is it maybe reduces the amount of reserve usage, and in an ideal state, if we were in a really positive reserve position, we could reduce some of the reserve transfer. But right now, our reserves are all under balance, and so there would be no, even if we did knock down some of the programs a little bit for usage, that wouldn't result in a concurrent dropping the reserve contribution because of their savings at that point. It would just be, we'd recover sooner over time from that perspective, so.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. So I'm going to go to Councillor Murray, and then Councillor Van Newkirk. And then someone else. Oh, sorry, did you want to speak there, Mr. Lewicky?
Yes, through the mayor. I just wanted to indicate with design work, and I mentioned a little bit of this in the project management presentation that we did on November 4th, I think it was. The idea is that we have higher contingencies because, again, we don't, Mr. Anders explained, we just don't know what we're dealing with as far as the overall costs. The reservoir example, that is a 2-year design project. It's a very large project as far as not understanding all of the risks and concerns. The design process allows us to go through and refine that estimate. Those uncertainties will be refined. We will know certain things. It may increase the cost given certain, but as we go through the process, that cost will be more refined and more clear, and your percentage of uncertainty will be less. So that's why we go at this higher level, and then as the design process, you kind of funnel down into a more refined cost, and that's part of the process of design, is that you get to a more certain place with your costing to allow your construction funding to be more accurate. Now, again, there's no guarantee. You could get right down to a detailed design, 90% drawing, and still end up going to tender, and you might still be over your tender pricing for your bids. There's always that risk. It's always a risk when you're doing this kind of work. But the idea is that we do our best to get it to a refined point where we're setting ourselves up for success to do the project within the budget we put forward for construction. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's two sides of that coin, right? In terms of it just speaks to, and I'm not questioning that at all, because I understand that my husband's in the construction industry, and so I understand that fully. It's just oftentimes the more money we have access to, the more money we can spend, right? So I'm not questioning the integrity of that. I'm just asking the question in terms of, you're still on there. Yeah, go ahead.
And to you, Madam Mayor, so that's the whole point of the,
Contingency.
well, no, it's about the poker hand. That's the whole
Right.
point of us not tipping our hands so that we can procure at the best value and get the best prices that we can by not already saying we'll spend X on this and then the bids come in at that a little bit higher, right? So the organization is 100% working to get the best value and not spend the whole amount. We just want to make sure that that it's administratively burdensome and it provides uncertainty and doubt in the community if we have to keep coming back for amendments to because we budgeted at the very like optimistic perspective and it didn't work out. That doesn't do anything for council or administration's the confidence in the public eye. So we always worst case scenario and then we do our procurement pieces to get the best value.
Thank you. Yeah, just one last question on that. Is that something as a common practice across all capital projects that you would say have a 30% or 25% contingency?
Through the mayor, it's really dependent on the project. Some projects we have a lot of certainty in all of the peripheral information that we have to provide a very accurate estimate in what it will cost, and others, like the reservoir project is a good example. Large scope, lots of uncertainty, higher contingencies. So it really depends. It's very project specific, but it is very common to run contingencies for project management or engineering and just contingencies in general to account for cost variations.
And up to that level, like that's a normal level?
Oh, yes,
In the
absolutely.
industry, 25, 30%? Yeah? Okay.
Yes, sorry.
All right, Councillor Murray. Thank you so much.
Thanks. I'm looking at the page 51, Transportation Renewal Program. Just wondering, is that to look at these, the buses that we talked about earlier this morning where they're coming to end of life?
Through the mayor to,
Or if we want to discuss particular details of capital projects now, this is where we should go into closed session to have those details.
Okay.
Are you in the same page, Ben? Sorry, did you have specific questions about?
No specific question. I would like to move a motion to move into closed, so.
All right.
sorry, jumped the gun there.
Mayor, can I just ask a quick question before we do that?
Absolutely, go ahead.
I guess, and there's no detail, and we know why we're doing that. Instead of going to closed session, is there any way to just get a detailed description of this provided to all of us? Because my concern is we go into closed session, I have questions on each and every one of these line items, so it might be an all-night thing.
Mayor, that
Councillor de Telebus, Jay is just conferring with City Clerk right now.
Mayor, in the meantime, I would suggest that the supplemental information has a one-pager on each of these, although not thorough, right? That there is on each of these, although not thorough, right? That there is information included on each, so.
So, thank you. So, to the councillor, it's my understanding and with consulting with Ledge Clerk that we'd need to go into closed session in order to provide the list, the detail list to council. We have paper and electronic copies ready to go to have this conversation. But if we don't go into closed session, it would be shared publicly, which would defeat the whole purpose of the way that we presented it at this point. So we still would need to go into closed session, even if it's only for a few minutes, if you just want to get the materials and then you can look over them and discuss them or debate them later, not around the financials, but around the projects themselves. That would be fine, or if council wants to discuss in detail, we're prepared to do that as well, but we would need to go into closed session one way or the other.
No, that's perfect. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, thank you. I'd be prepared to move that council move into closed session at 2:42 p.m. pursuant to the Access of Information Act, Sections 29 and 30. Thank you. And nothing to say for opening.
favor.
Did you say in favor? Yes, okay.
Correct, Mayor, yeah.
All right, cast your vote. I think we're missing one. You don't have your thing up? Okay. All right, that passed unanimously. We will now go